Hey, I think we're now live. Let me see. Huh. We are live. I see myself in there now. So let's get it going. Welcome to Coding is for Losers office hours. I'm David. If you don't know me, David Krevitt. I'm the creator of Coding is for Losers, and I work with a number of different collaborators, developers, different spreadsheet template experts, different folks who help me publish content and templates on Coding is for Losers. So however you found office hours, welcome. Happy to have you here. Basically, the structure of this is just Q&A. I get a ton of inbound email with questions about Google Sheets, automation, now Google Data Studio, now that that's come out. And rather than answering those questions one-on-one over email, I figured there's much kind of higher leverage to answer these questions publicly, share the answers with you over YouTube here, and watch. So you can watch later, so that we can all kind of learn together and not just have all these Q&A sessions siloed in my inbox. So the theme of this week's session is Data Studio. I would say about, let's see, let me drop a link to Google Data Studio so you have it. I think it's datastudio.google.com. And Data Studio is Google's free dashboarding tool. It's a really awesome tool that I use pretty much every day in client work and in teaching on Coding is for Losers. It's really taken off in the dashboarding world, and it's kind of the go-to tool that most people are using now because it's free and you can connect all kinds of data sources to it. So I'd say that about half my questions lately have been about Data Studio. So one, I produced a course that's at learn.codingisforlosers.com on Data Studio, answering all these types of questions that I get on a regular basis. But two, I've had about, let's see, 7 or 8 questions come in over email about Data Studio. So I wanted to get to those and kind of walk through what a Data Studio dashboard looks like. First, let's just look at one. I don't know if you guys can enter in the chat box just like whether you've used Data Studio before or not. I'd be curious to if I can do a poll here. I'm not sure. Anyways, let me bring up a dashboard just so that you guys can see, and I'll screen share here. Let's see. Okay. Oh man, that's super meta. Okay, we won't do that. So this is a dashboard. If you can see my screen here, this is a Twitter dashboard that accompanies the Data Studio the Lazy Way course. And just poking around with this for a second, you can get a quick feel for what Data Studio can do. Basically, you connect data sources. So whether that's tweets, daily activity, I have a bunch of different sources in here. And then you make these really simple charts with this kind of sidebar in Data Studio. So if you haven't played around with it, I highly recommend going to datastudio.google.com, getting your feet wet with it. And like I said, if you want to dive deep on it, there's a course that I just produced on it on the website. So before I dive into the questions, I just want to let you guys know that if you have a question that comes up, whether it's Data Studio related or not at any time, you can just drop it in the live chat box, kind of call these like hot seat questions. And yeah, I'll answer them whenever I can get into it. So let me stop screen sharing here. get my video back on. I wrote up these questions in a sheet. So let me just share this with all of you guys so that you can follow along. So let me say anyone with a link can share, can view this. Cool. Here's the sheet that I'll be talking through. Rather than screen share this, because then you can't see my video, I'll just kind of talk through them and you can crack it open. And like I said, if you have a question at any time, just drop it into live chat and I will get to it. So the first question, let me see if I can do a marker here. Okay, I'll have to edit these later. The first question is from Stephen K. And his question is on Google Forms. So he has a Google form and he wants... his question was, how does data from a Google form need to be formatted to push to Data Studio? So if you have a Google form and you want to view the results in a report in Data Studio, you have to do a little bit of formatting to make that happen. And really all you need to do is, it's all about dates. So if you're in the sheet and looking at the question 1 tab, it's really just about date formatting. So if you want to push data from a Google Sheet up to Data Studio, the date has to be in year, month, date format. And it's really as simple as that. Once you have your dates in that format, Data Studio will automatically recognize them as dates, and you'll be able to make all these kind of sexy time series charts and different tables that filter by date. So if you're in here, I'll drop this into the live chat as well. But say you have a date that's formatted like this. You know, this is kind of like, I think it's ISO 9000 or something date format. So it's like Friday, May 5th. But you want to get it into this format for Data Studio. All you really need to do, and I say all kind of facetiously here, but you can use text processing formulas in Google Sheets before you push your data up to Data Studio. And one formula would look like this. So you use mid and right and text and some combination of date processing functions in your sheet to get them formatted in the right way. You could also do this in Data Studio in calculated columns, but it would be a little bit more complicated to do. So that's the first question if you're in the sheet that I linked to at the top. Let's see, we just had a question from the live chat. Altitude marketing. So we use Data Studio a lot. What are your recommendations for adding data from LinkedIn and Facebook ad campaigns? That's a really good question. So I actually built the first thing to really think about when you think about adding new data sources to Data Studio, because if you played around with Data Studio, you know, it picks up native Google data sources. So like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, AdWords, all of those are like really tightly integrated. But third-party data sources like Facebook ads or LinkedIn or Twitter ads or Twitter data, or any of those third-party sources don't sync directly with Data Studio. So you have to use a kind of middleman tool. I usually use Google Sheets for this, to get that data into Sheets and then push it up to Data Studio. So you can use tools like, they're all Google Sheets add-ons. So these are the types of tools I talk about in the Lazy Tool Belt course. So one is Supermetrics. The other is Blockspring. And really what I do, it's really easy. All of these tools will get Facebook ads data, right? And I actually have a template that's part of the course that I can drop here for Data Studio. Let's see, where is it? So this template, if you copy it, pulls in Facebook ads data. And also, let's type that note in. But the challenge is LinkedIn, right? I'm not sure that Supermetrics or Blockspring will pull in LinkedIn ads data. So really what I do when I'm looking at a data source like this is I'll go to the tool itself, just to their website, and browse. Let me share my screen here. I'll just go to the site and browse. What do they have going on here? So let's look at Supermetrics data sources. Let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see. Okay, so let's see. Google Analytics, AdWords. I do not see, I see LinkedIn. This is like probably just basic LinkedIn page data, but I don't see LinkedIn ads on any of these. Okay, so, and let's also search Blockspring LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn APIs on Blockspring. Yeah, they also don't have ads data. So let's just Google it. LinkedIn ads data, Google Apps script. So we'll see if someone's written like a custom script to pull it. Yeah, I don't see any here. So that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one. But in general, if you were going, and this is a question, let's see, question 3, if you're in the sheet, and this was a question from John S., which is very similar to your question. And he was asking, are there ways to drive higher ROI on ad spend with Sheets/Data Studio? And I think the simple answer there, let me just stop sharing my screen. The simple answer is, if you want to analyze ad spend data in Data Studio, the first thing to do is pull all of your data together in one sheet. So Data Studio works on this concept of data sources, which means you can only compare data on the same chart if it's in the same tab in a sheet or in the same database table or from the same Google Analytics property or anything like that. So the first thing to do is really get everything together in one tab. That's what the template that I shared here does. It pulls AdWords data, pulls Google Analytics data, and pulls Facebook ads data, and it pulls them all together into one tab, and then you can make charts that compare and contrast them. So that's going to be your core challenge if you're working with ad data in Data Studio, is just getting them all together, seeing whether Supermetrics or Blockspring or AppScript or which of the tools will allow you to pull data into sheets and then aggregating them all together. So I recommend starting with that template that I just shared, which uses Supermetrics for a few of those. And you can kind of copy the structure. And yeah, the Data Studio course goes into more detail about data sources and going through all the nitty-gritty of that stuff. Let's see. So if anyone else has kind of a hot seat question like that, feel free to drop it into the live chat. Like I said, I just dropped the link into the question doc that I'll be going through. And I think we're up to, let's see. I think we're up to question 2 here. So this question was similar to the previous question. It says, is it possible to connect Facebook ads, Infusionsoft, Xero, and other custom data sets using Data Studio, Sheets, and AppScript for free without using Supermetrics Zapier paid plans? This is a common question that I get. And really the question is, can I have my cake and eat it too? Like, can you get all of this data together for free? And the short answer is not really, because there's always some cost, right? Even if you're using AppScript, which is free to write the code. I mean, if you know how to write code and you can code something in AppScript, yeah, it's technically free, except what's your time worth? And how much time are you spending building it? And how much time are you spending maintaining it? I mean, if you're paying a developer to build it, it's definitely not going to be anything close to free. And it'll probably end up being an order of magnitude more expensive than if you were using off-the-shelf tools like Supermetrics or Blockspring, which are Blockspring's $15 a month, Supermetrics is $50 a month. So you're better off kind of eating that cost over time than eating a bigger cost. I can't imagine building anything with a developer in Sheets for less than $1,000. So I think it's worth your time to get familiar with using some of these tools. The other thing that I did with some other folks internally at Coding is for Losers is we built kind of like an internal framework, an app script that allows us to pull data from specific APIs that we use. So let's see, this question mentioned Facebook ads, Infusionsoft, Xero. Those aren't the types of things that we generally work with. Generally, most of our work at Coding is for Losers is done with SEO and other digital agencies. So we work with a lot of SEMrush data, Google Analytics data, Search Console data, Ahrefs data, stuff like that. So the services that we use over and over and over again, yeah, there was a big, really high leverage point for us to spend a little bit of time and money building this internal tool in AppScript so that then we can just use it and not pay recurring fees for it. But that's only for the very specific stuff that I do with and others at Coding is for Losers do with digital agencies. So long story short, get familiar with the tools and use the tools, pay for the tools, because honestly, in the long run, $50 a month is super cheap when compared to maintaining custom code, which can be incredibly time costly. Cool. Let me check if we've got any hot seat questions. Cool, nothing there. So I'll just keep going in the spreadsheet doc. Let's see. We've got question 3. Question 3 was, are there ways to drive higher ROI on ad spend with Sheets or Data Studio? I kind of mentioned that answer before. Recommend using this template as kind of a baseline. The core thing to do with Data Studio is get all of your ad campaigns from different platforms into one tab in Google Sheets, so that then you can start comparing and analyzing them and kind of pitting them against each other in Data Studio charts or tables. So let's see, question 4 here in the sheet. This was from Ben A, and a lot of guys. I would love to see some ladies asking questions on Coding is for Losers. I know most of us are guys here, but if you would love to see some women asking questions here. So let's see, from Ben A. Is it possible to pull keyword research data, like monthly search volume for a keyword, into Data Studio? The short answer is no, because Google's, so I assume you're talking about Google's keyword planner tool that accompanies AdWords. The short answer is that you cannot, because that tool does not have an API. You can't pull the data in anywhere. But what you can do, and what I link to this in the answer in the sheet, is you can use something like SEMrush to pull basically monthly search volume for any given keyword into a Google Sheet and then read that into Google Data Studio. So yeah, so I'd recommend getting familiar with the SEMrush API. Any tool will connect to this. So if you're looking at Supermetrics or Blockspring or custom app script, you can use any of those depending on how much coding you want to do, whether it's none or some. And also, I've built a number of templates that we use internally in our work with digital agencies at Coding is for Losers that leverage SEMrush data in this way. So feel free to reach out directly if you want to get a feel for those types of internal templates we have. Cool. So that's Ben's question. We're just churning through these. I feel like we're going to be done in might be done in a half hour, which would be awesome. And as always, feel free to drop any questions into the live chat if you want me to cover them, and I can get to them at the end. Okay. So question 5 is from David T. And his question is, so he uses a tool called, he's in sales and he uses a tool called Phoneburner, which is a kind of sales dialing tool if you're doing phone marketing. Let's see. So he wants to know, can you pull Phoneburner data into Google Sheets in any other way other than Zapier and webhooks? So webhooks are awesome. They if you're not familiar with Zapier, however people like to pronounce it, basically it when something happens in a tool that you use, it's kind of like if this then that, their competitor, which says exactly what they do. When something happens, say in Phoneburner, like a trigger is flipped, then an action will take place. Like a call happens, therefore drop data into Google Sheets about that call. So webhooks in Zapier allow you to set that up. So the question here is really, can you use the Phoneburner API to just pull all the data into Sheets rather than using the webhook? Because if you're using webhooks in Zapier and you have a lot of actions happening, anywhere over like 1,000, you're gonna pay pretty significantly for that on Zapier. So, short answer, I checked out the Phoneburner API docs. The short answer is you're kind of out of luck because there isn't a kind of like open source Google Sheets framework for catching webhooks. There should be, if anyone out there has worked on something similar. Please holler and let me know, because I can think of 1,000 different things that we could build with that, which would be great and help a lot of people. Short answer, no, you can't catch up webhooks in Google Sheets. Second unfortunate answer is their API is not supported by Blockspring or Supermetrics. I'd recommend reaching out to them and requesting that they add it if you're so motivated about it. And the third thing is that both Blockspring, Supermetrics, and AppScript have ways that you can connect to simple APIs that don't use like OAuth authentication or other types of authentication. Unfortunately, this API, the Phoneburner API, does use OAuth, so you're kind of out of luck with using those custom connectors. So unfortunately, the answer here is, I think your current solution with Zapier and webhooks, although it's a little bit expensive, is probably your best bet for now until some of these other things evolve. Okay, let's see. Now we're up to question 6 in the sheet. We're really cruising through these guys. So question 6 is from David C. And he says, I kind of paraphrased his question because it had some kind of identifying details about what his work, but he says, I have 2 separate lists of data. Is it possible to generate a list of all values from the larger list that are also on the smaller list? So this is a common, if you're looking to aggregate data in Sheets to push it up to Data Studio, a common thing is to filter some subset of that data and do a lot of manipulation of that data. My personal favorite for doing this is the query function. Let me drop a URL here. Cool. Here's a Coding is for Losers post on the query function. This goes through all kinds of stuff that you can do with the query function, and the course that is up on Coding is for Losers kind of expands on this. But the core of this is doing what's called a query join. So if you've done any SQL, written any SQL before, you're familiar with query joins. But there's a way to hack these together in Google Sheets using queries. And I actually put this out on YouTube as like a request, I think, of, hey, if anyone knows how to do this, let me know, because I have no idea. And a bunch of people have commented, and this is kind of the solution that I arrived at and used today. So say we're working with Twitter data. This is a list of a few a few Twitter handles. By the way, this is all Twitter data from the Data Studio course. I love using Twitter data for courses because everyone can relate to it. So we have some raw tweets here, right? These are like, sorry, I just realized I'm not screen sharing. Let me screen share this. Okay, so we've got some raw tweets here in the sheet, just like the date, the username. Yeah, that's about it. Shared URLs. So let's pull all of the URLs that people from this list are sharing. Okay, let's change this up. Basically, you'd write a regular query here. So you'd say, select column E, column I, where I isn't blank. Let's do this, actually. Let's take the links shared. So let's only when they shared a link. And that's a regular query, right? Pretty simple one there. I don't know if this is going to work, actually. Oh, there we go. That makes it easier to read. Okay, so H equals all. That's just a placeholder. And here's the key to query joining. You can use a concatenate plus array formula. And you put, okay, this is the column, our handle column. And then these are all your usernames or your handles that you want to filter out. So it's a little bit of a complex query, but David, you can basically just copy this exact example, kind of adapt it for what you're doing, and it should work out pretty cleanly for you. Cool. So what we see here is that now we have all of the shared URLs from all of the users that were on this list. So if we remove Ben from there, sorry Ben, now it's just these two guys. Cool. Let's add Ben back in there. I wouldn't want to hurt his feelings. Cool. So let me stop sharing my screen here. All right. So I think this is the final question that I had prepared. Let's see. Yeah, question 7. So this is it for questions that have been written into me that relate to Data Studio that I wanted to cover. If you have questions, Data Studio related or not, feel free to ask them in the live chat. Or for next, I'll be doing these sessions once a week, every Thursday, this exact time, just recurring office hour sessions. So you can always reach out to me over email, officehours@codingisforlosers.com with a question, if any come up during the week. Let's see. So on to question 7. This is from Andrew C. And this is based on some of the work that I've been doing with Ryan Stewart's agency, Webris. He's really on the forefront of using Google Sheets in a digital agency context. So this video I just shared in chat kind of goes through how his agency uses Sheets, and Coding is for Losers has worked with him to build out a lot of that stuff. So one of the things that he does is he has a master project management sheet, and then he has client sheets. And the client sheets read kind of project management progress from the master sheet, so that each client has their workbook that they can view in real time. What's the progress on this project? What are my analytics? Look at their monthly reporting, all of this good stuff. So Andrew, your question is kind of looking at it from the opposite way of how can I push data from client sheets up to a master sheet? So you have a bunch of client sheets, you're doing stuff in there, and you want to aggregate it to one master sheet so that you can maybe view that master sheet in Data Studio, which is what we do with Ryan's work and his agency. So the simple answer there is use import range. You can do custom app script work, but really import range is like the gateway drug to getting this going and at least working. So I dropped into the sheet here in cell B8 of question 7 is an import range formula that you could kind of use and adapt. And it's really combining results from two, and you can just make that 3 or 4 or 5 import ranges into one array that displays in a tab. So if you have 5 sheets, you enter them all into this one formula, and then you'll be able to view all of their data in the master sheet. But I thought it was important for you to know that that's not actually the way that Ryan's sheets are set up. They're set up that the client reads from the master sheet. So the master sheet has all the data, and the import range is happening on the client sheet. So you don't actually, in his setup, you don't actually write data to the master from the client, if that makes sense, because it's much more organized. And, you know, in my opinion, at least, it's much more organized to have all of your activity happening in one sheet per activity. So whether you're doing project management, or whether you're managing like link building outreach campaigns, whether you're managing like content production, each of those can be its own separate sheet, separate tool that aggregates to one data source, and then your client sheets can read that. So feel free to holler at me if you, Andrew, if you have any questions on that kind of like architecture and how to set that up. So if anyone has questions, feel free to drop them here. If not, we can just wrap for today. I think that was a pretty good first session. I think we got to a lot of these. I'm going to go through and edit these and see if there are any answers that would make helpful YouTube videos standalone, and I'll share that out with the Coding is for Losers group there. Let's see. Yeah. So if there's no other questions, we can just wrap it up now. If you have questions for next week, feel free to shoot them to officehours@codingisforlosers.com. And let's see, don't forget to the Data Studio course that a lot of this was excerpted from was, let me get the Data Studio. Yeah, I want to grab the coupon for you guys just so you can get the discount if you want it. Coupon equals, I think it's Vault 4. Well, I can't find it. Either way, if you're in the Coding is for Losers template vault, there is a coupon code to data analysis the lazy way, and you can dig it up there. But here's the course itself. Awesome, guys. So yeah, holler at me with your questions for next week, and I'll see you same time. Take care.